Welcome to the newest episode of Saved by the Books, where two ladies with opposite reading tastes discuss all things reading.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another episode of Saved by the Books. We are back after missing a week.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about some reading stuff because, yeah, last week we just didn't already have an episode done and Becky had to go out of town kind of unexpectedly and school starting back.
Yeah, and you with the crazy sale. And
yeah, I had a sale and it ended up having a lot of like marathon work days. So yeah, that was great, but it left very little time to record. But we're back, and today we're going to talk about reading ruts and slumps.
Yeah,
and the pressure to read.
And because I think everyone has felt that at some point, and usually I feel it around this time of year.
Yeah.
So because usually summer I read nonstop, and then when school starts, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to read. And then I feel pressure, like, oh my gosh, I've just wasted days not reading and everything. And we always host, the Creating Co. book club always has in August.
Yeah.
Readathon, and usually I always help with it and everything. But usually I can't read sometimes even a book during it. But this year I was pretty successful.
This year I only read the group read.
Yeah, so we like switch roles in this case.
And then I didn't even get to do a live show because I was so busy with like packaging orders and stuff. So yeah, I did vlog about it though. So if you're curious about how I feel about Soulless by Gail Carriger, go check out my YouTube channel on my last video. Also, we haven't even mentioned and told them about your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, I kind of started a YouTube channel. It's quite novel. I do have an Instagram for it. I'm pretty active on my Instagram. I'm trying to be better on the YouTube channel. And that's just because, like Paige said, I had a family emergency come up and I had to go out of town suddenly at the beginning of the school year, which I think all moms and teachers out there understand that first month of school is so busy and so exhausting.
I kind of like back to school time because that means I can go to Target during the day and there's not people all over the place. But I don't like our Target anymore. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't go to Target anymore, and which is the weirdest thing ever.
It's great for our wallets.
It is, because they took away our Target. So they completely got off track.
They closed our Target because admittedly there was too many Targets within a mile radius of each other.
And it was always like empty. Like that's why we loved it, because it was always clean.
And
there was never a line.
So they closed
parking.
it. And, well, I mean, they closed it probably because of all those reasons.
Yes.
They don't want that to happen. And so now we have to go for, like, not even a whole mile further, you guys.
No.
But it is at this, like, really busy intersection. And it's constantly full. They are constantly doing things to the parking lot. They are constantly rearranging this store.
Oh my gosh. There's no sense in how they rearrange it.
It's never stocked with, like, anything. Like, if we ever see, like, anything from, like, the dollar spot, anything like that that's, like, new and people want it, forget it, we can't have it. But yeah, that's a whole other tangent.
Yeah, so we don't go to Target, which is crazy.
But yeah,
we just order on Amazon.
Nice. Yeah.
So but we're back, and like we said, like typically we know people go through reading ruts. I've experienced it quite a bit. Sometimes either I'll be so big into reading, or I'll be in a rut and then feel the pressure to read, because I think with books, I was about to say, I feel like with the online book community, there is so much more pressure to be reading all the time, and not even to be reading all the time, but also to read certain things.
Yes.
To read a certain amount. Yeah, and just to be like doing all of like the things that everybody else is doing. I feel like it's kind of, the online world, I feel like has definitely made like adult peer pressure more of a thing.
Oh yeah, because I know before, like when I was interested, I would just, you know, wander the shelves of Barnes & Noble or another local bookstore
And I would grab a few books and then I would read them.
And if it took you a year to read all
and
those
it was
books,
fine.
like it was fine because nobody else was looking at it. Nobody else cared.
Right, but now it's constant. Have you read this? Have you read that? And then all these new releases are coming out. Well, you better read that before you get spoiled on it. It's just like, I think it's worse than a lot of, you know, Netflix series and even movies at this point because of the online community.
And even like from a like blogger type of perspective with like how many arcs come out, like, and then so many books come out on like the same day. So like right now I have like 4 or 5 books that are coming out on the day you guys are listening to this. If you're listening on Tuesday, like that's a lot of new releases that you're like, if you're pressured into it, you're gonna pay full price or, you know, buy like a brand new copy or whatever.
Right, because we know, and we've talked about before, our library doesn't have any new releases.
Yeah, so we don't really
right, and now Kindle, a lot of times those prices are almost the same as a full price book, so why not buy the full price?
Yeah, and then the whole like point, like I remember vividly when like e-readers first became a thing because I had the Nook, like the very first one, and like the whole like main selling point was that it was cheaper to buy a digital copy than it is to buy a physical copy.
Right.
So,
well, and even recently, because I did place a book order, some of the paperbacks were more expensive than the hardbacks. And I'm like, how does this work out? Because, and it's not even like an old backlist where they're doing like new publications of it. It's current books. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. But I know, I guess on that, I feel like more and more now, because I now have a booktube and I have a bookstagram, I do feel more pressure to read current books compared to the older books, like the backlist books or the classics, which is, that's what most of my TBR is full of.
And I was gonna say, I think I was talking about this a little bit in my vlog too, but like, I try not to pressure or like to let the pressure get to me, because reading is supposed to be like my fun thing. That being said though, I own Creating & Co., which is a planner shop, but the book part of it is such a large part of that business that like when we run the readathons, I feel guilty if like I don't do the photo challenges, or I don't like read 5 books in a week or whatever, if I don't read like all of the books or whatever. I kind of like, I titled my vlog like the Slacker reading vlog or something, but I mean like realistically I still read a book last week.
Right,
like,
you read a book in a week. Like, I think that's a huge accomplishment on top of all the business stuff you had to get done, because you were doing like 10-hour days for 10 days
or longer.
Right, so crazy. I mean, it's one of those things on top of having like a chronic illness with migraines and stuff, and because some days you just can't, like, and
or even like buddy reads, like
Ace of Shades.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's not that I, like, for one, like, I don't feel that bad about it. I haven't finished Ace of Shades yet, which, by the way, if you guys are reading it with us, we're gonna do an episode about it next week. I'm gonna finish it, but I mean, like, I think the whole idea of buddy reads starts out as like such a fun idea. Even like readathons, like it starts out as such a fun idea, but then it becomes like this thing that's kind of hanging over your head, and that's when it becomes a chore and you don't want to do it.
And that's not what it's meant to be. And we don't want it to be like that. And so, because I know a lot of people, like we had some new people to the group, and they were like, oh my gosh, I have to read 5 books. And we're like, no.
No, like read 1 book.
Read whatever you want. And because we get, life happens. And the whole point of these things is to enjoy reading. Or some people didn't like the group read, and, you know, they were pushing themselves through it, where maybe typically they would have DNF'd the book. And so sometimes when I
feel like so many people also like don't DNF books, because then I think it's as a result of like that pressure. And like just another thing, like with the whole pressure thing, like I'm pretty vocal about the fact that I do not like sci-fi. I just don't. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I mean, if you like it, that's cool, awesome. It's just not my thing. But like I've read, like I listened to Illuminae because of the pressure. Or like Cinder. I read that because of the pressure. And sure enough, I mean, they were fine books. They weren't bad. But like, they're not my new favorite. Like, I don't really want to continue either of the series, because at the end of the day, like I knew what I like. I know what I like. Yeah. And so.
Well, and I think when we read those books because of the pressure, then sometimes that'll make me go into a reading rut because I'm just it just makes me get in a funk because then I'm not enjoying it. And then I'm like, what can I read?
Well, it's almost like you want to do something, but then when it becomes like I have to do this, you're like, at least for some things, like you're less likely to do it. Like that goes with anything. Like, for example, I play a lot of Sims. And there have been times I've wanted to do Sims videos on my channel. I haven't because I know that will then in my mind become like
you have to do
thing. Yeah, a thing I have to do and that I have to like incorporate into this video schedule. And so that will make me not want to play Sims as a result. Because I have a really bad habit of turning anything that I really like into a chore and a job. So it's something I try to be conscious of, like, that I'm trying not to do. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's what it is. Like, it kind of, in your mind, something clicks, and it's like, this is a chore now.
Right, and that's how I have felt. Like, I didn't read as much, and it's so bad. Like, for some of the buddy reads we do for this podcast, I mean, sometimes I'm finishing the book as Paige is setting up the camera because it's become this chore. I have to read this book this month. I literally, and Cody and Paige will be watching me, like, finish. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like 30 pages left. Let me finish this. Like,
listen, we're not staring at her as she finishes.
Yes, well, they're there in the room. EXO is staring at me then. But
that's because he's like, sit down, I want to cuddle.
Yes, but no, like, and so for the readathon, I put Ace of Shades as my last book. Well, I started it on a Saturday knowing that I'm going to have to finish it either Saturday or Sunday. So if because I didn't know where Paige was at the time in the book.
And like I was even worse about it because like.
Yeah, you were like me this time.
Well, it's because of how much work I ended up having to do. Right. I was like, I think I can fit this in because realistically, like once I get sucked into a book, like I'll finish it that day.
Yeah,
but
she's
like
really good about it.
But yeah, like it's the simple fact of like I haven't had time, and admittedly, like I said in my vlog, I haven't really wanted to be reading because we've been watching Peaky Blinders on Netflix, and that's really interesting, and I want to watch that, or I want to play Sims, or I just want to do other things. And EXO is trying to visit you guys through the camera if you guys are watching, but yeah, sorry for any dog noses that are
in your view, or the little nails on the desk. But like, so I have about 80 pages left in the book, which I plan on finishing tonight because actually we're vlogging about our reading.
Yeah, and so I feel like that even in a way had like kind of made it even an additional chore.
Pressure, yes. Because I'm like, what do I vlog? It's gonna be my first vlog, but
and it's hard because it's like those things are fun, and it's like sometimes you want to do them,
right?
But then sometimes it's just like one more thing on your list.
But I will say I felt a lot of the pressure leave when you said, hey, I'm only at page 70, and at the same time I was too, and I'm like, okay, like we're at the same point. But then I actually had time to read, and that was the only thing I was reading, and so I got like sucked into it completely, so it makes it a lot easier. But when I do hit a rut, like I think some of the things we could talk about, like what we do when we hit a rut, like I will honestly, like you said, binge watch stuff on Netflix or YouTube.
I read a lot of fan fiction. So there's that. There are sometimes I'm just in the mood to only read fan fiction. And I don't know why, because I'm really picky about what I read. Like, I want it to be good quality. So it's like, I'm not going to just read like any old thing that's on the internet. Like, I'm going to find somebody that writes like really good fan fiction. There was one I read in August that literally was over 300,000 words. And it was really, really good. But I'm like, that is a lot of words. Like most books are like 60 to 70 to even up to like 100,000 words. Like essentially that was 3 books.
Right.
But
it was a Stephen King novel.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Under the Dome.
Yeah, exactly. It.
But yeah, like, like I said, I don't know why, but like that's just what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes I'm just only like, I only want to read like college romance.
And see, that's what I was gonna say. I think one thing that we both have in common when we do get in a rut, we will read like romances, like not, and this goes back to what we talked about with the romance stigma, like we'll jump to a Kindle Unlimited and just read everything that one author, or that whole type of, whether it's college or whether it's hockey or like
yeah,
some
like
random sports or like the mafia, like we'll just read everything about that. And I mean, to get us back out
but
of it.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, I feel like in a way it kind of goes back to the pressure of the online community in some ways. And even, I don't know, like I just personally don't have it in my own life. Like Becky's my only like real like person that I see like that reads all the time. So like she's the only person in my real life that would pressure me about something. I take that back. Cody's really pressuring me about. He's really pressuring me about Stormlight Archives.
Brandon
and sure
Sanderson.
enough, every time he asks me about it, it just kind of drops a little bit lower on my phone.
I know, because if you were with us in one of our earlier podcasts, we mentioned how we went book shopping with Cody, and he picked out a book for each of us. And of course, they're both Brandon
Neither of
Sanderson.
them have been read.
And we both talk about all the time, we should probably read these, but then we don't. And luckily, Cody hasn't asked me about it recently. So I'm like, that's the thing ever. Like, I think he may have forgotten. He picked it out for me.
He did too.
So we aren't going to mention that.
Don't remember.
Luckily,
or
I
don't mention it.
Yeah, like, luckily he doesn't listen to this, I don't think.
Yeah. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know why that is though.
I will know I put a pressure on myself because I have so many books on my TBR, which if you go to my Goodreads, you can see how many books I have on my TBR, because all my want to read are all my physical books. And it's because I went through that period where I couldn't read. And so I feel like all that pressure, I need to do this.
I kind of feel the same way, because I didn't read throughout nursing school, and then for a long time after nursing school, when I was like settling into like adult life, I wasn't reading. And I kind of feel like, especially like when I first started reading again, I was like, it's because I found the online book community. And so like I was seeing all these videos of all these books that had been published while I wasn't reading, and I was like, oh my god, I have to read that, I have to go buy this, I have to, because like I legitimately wanted to read those.
Yeah, because I learned about it about 3 to 6 months, and that's when I met you, about the whole book community and stuff. And then it was like I wasn't able to actually read for so long in my world that I just had to, like, I need to take this in because it could be taken away from me again.
Yeah.
And how could I, and I know audiobooks because I did do audiobooks at the time, but to me it wasn't the same.
It's, to me, like, it's not the same. Like, Cody will only read audiobooks because he likes it. It works for him. Which, funnily enough, he does not like the audiobooks that are, like, full cast with sound effects. Like,
really?
Yeah.
See, that's why I loved Illuminate.
That's why, yeah, I like those too. Like, that's probably what saved Illuminate for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't like those. But like, for me, audiobooks, like, I don't feel connected to the characters. I don't catch like little details because...
See, depending on it, I won't. And I feel like for a big fantasy, because I did all the Lord of the Rings we've talked about, and neither one of us have read it. But for all the Game of Thrones, different fandom, I ended up doing it on audio. I did the first book, audio and book, so I'd follow it along. But then, I mean, it's just such a huge...
See, it almost...
With all the different names and stuff, I needed to hear the names in order to differentiate it versus seeing the names.
It almost never fails for me. I will start an audiobook and then finish the physical copy. Like, Outlander was the same way. I started it on audio and then I ended up finishing it with the physical copy.
See, and if I started on audio, I'll finish it on audio.
No,
and so, because most of the time that's what I do going to work and coming back. But
and I don't have the commute to like
to
see, and I feel like that was something we were talking about it just a little bit ago, because we were on the way to dinner and I was just talking about how in my job, because I work from home, I don't ever have like little pockets in my day, like little pockets of time, because every minute is pretty much accounted for. Like, I'm working, or I'm grabbing lunch, or I'm like off work because I'm doing XYZ. So like, I don't have like those little, like when I worked as a nurse, or even like in high school when I worked at a pharmacy and a Radio Shack, like I always had like good managers that were like totally cool with like having a book or something behind the register, and so like if there's no customers, I could like read 5 pages and whatever. And I don't know, or even like in like high school, I would use homeroom to like look at my planner. But I don't ever do that at home because I would just like come in and get like immediately to work as soon as I hit my office door.
Right.
I don't know.
So
it would be interesting, like it would be interesting for me to see like how much I read if I had a more traditional job where like like even like with you, like I know you can't read during the day, but like with your commute to and from
well
home.
And then it's funny, during readathons I do try to pocket in time to read. And I remember, or last year, it was one of the only suspenseful books, because I'm the biggest chicken ever, or the year before with is it Behind These Doors or Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. I couldn't put that book down. I had it with me the whole day. Like any pocket of time I was like reading this, and I'm like, sorry guys,
that's
like it's so bad.
Like that's how I was with Heartless. And I read Heartless when I was still working in the hospital, and like I was literally like, I'd be like, I'm gonna go in the break room real quick for like 5 minutes, and I'd run in there for like 5 minutes, and then I'd run back out to go like do whatever the next task was.
But then I feel like in some cases with those types of books, you become, because it's such a suspenseful or such a good book, you can't put it down. When you finish, then you end up in a rut.
Yeah, then you have that let down because there's nothing else
that can compare.
I think that's why I like fan fiction, because there's always something else. You know, like if I finish a fan fiction, like I can just go find another one.
That's
and
similar.
it's still it's the same characters, even though like I read a lot of like alternate universe type of fan fiction. So it's like it's never what the real thing was in the beginning or at the first place anyway. So I don't know why that is.
Or sometimes, I know I found myself in a rut last year, big time, or earlier this year. I went and reread some of my favorite like historical romance, or I'll switch to, and I do this now in between, like I'm sure I'll start it tomorrow, a contemporary romance, because I know what I'm getting into, and it gives me that break from all that reading being done at one time, and like a mental break. But I'm still getting some reading done, even though it's on audio, but it's still reading. And there was a study that just came out I saw where the brain actually recognizes as the same thing. So I'm like, okay, further proof for those that do audiobooks. It's reading.
It's just that is one of my like pet peeves, because it's such an ableist mindset to think that audiobooks aren't reading.
I know, like, and it bothers me, because
it's the fact that like there are legitimately people who physically cannot read.
Yes.
Like physically cannot hold a book in their hands.
I've done that.
Whatever reason, they can't read. An audiobook is still experiencing the story.
Yep.
And like I get the whole like it's not technically reading, because like your
eyes aren't looking at the page. I'm sorry, but it is.
But it is reading.
And especially for those who, I mean, auditory learners versus visual learners, like, or hands-on learners. Like, as a teacher, I'm sorry, like I do count that as reading. But yeah,
I mean, you're still experienced, and even
the story.
Even like they're like TV shows. We're kind of getting off on another tangent.
Yeah, sorry guys.
But like there's a difference between like reality TV and like a serial, like I don't know, like serial drama, or like Game of Thrones, especially because like I feel like the bar for TV has gotten so much higher over the recent years that like now like there are legitimately like elements that you can pick out of a movie or of a TV show that is the same as like you can pick out of a book, like themes and metaphors,
the complex, you know. And
there's such like, I feel like filmography in itself is a like art form.
Yeah,
I don't know, that was a whole other tangent,
but so yeah, that's what I'll do.
Audiobooks, thumbs up from us.
Yeah, but I'll listen to one or two of those contemporary romances, and then I'll jump on to like whatever my plans are. And I feel, and I talked about this actually, so actually my September TBR, and about how, like, I think I did, but you know, this last month I read 12 books, and I'm like, how did I read 12 books?
I read 7, counting the fan fiction that I talked about, and that is less than half of what I normally read.
Right, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I read 12 books. Like, this is not normal for me at all. And then I have 9 books on my TBR, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, can I actually? And then I'm doing, technically, I need to add a book for our Shop Your Shelves.
Yeah, so the Creating a Co book club is doing like a Shop Your Shelves challenge for September, where we're trying to read books that like either they already exist on your bookshelf or they were already like on your TBR list. And like, yeah, so I set my goal at 10 for that. So we'll see.
And then I'm like, oh, I know I'm creating this monster of I'm gonna end up in a reading rut because I've put so much pressure on myself the last few months. And then I've come up with like, oh, this TBR type of idea would be fun. And I've talked to Paige about it. And I'm like, and I said earlier, I was like, how am I gonna fit this all in? And so I feel like I am, and it goes back to that whole mindset with the internet, the online community, the like, pressures.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, as an adult, I feel like we do put a lot of the pressure on ourselves because, like, I don't know, I was just thinking, like, when we were in school and, like, we would have to read novels, like, those were assigned, like, that was pressure to read, legitimately, like, or, like, if you work in the publishing industry, like, you probably have a lot of pressure to read. Even bloggers, to an extent, have a, like, professional obligation to read the books. But like, if you're just an adult person who likes to read, you kind of put the pressure on yourself, honestly. I mean, and it's like, I'm not saying like you're mean to yourself or like you even have a choice in it, because some people have just more of a personality, like they are gonna like internalize it. But I don't know, I think the biggest thing, like when you feel like a lot of pressure, is to somehow get to where in your mind you can be like, no,
it's okay.
It's okay. Like, no, but like, there's not a police officer that's gonna come to your house and get mad at you for not reading your book. Like, if you don't feel like it, then you just don't feel like it.
Well, and I started a TBR jar a few months ago. It's with all my classics. And I ended up, the first time I did it, I only read one of the books and I picked 2. And so I was like, okay, well, hey, at least I've read one of the classics that's on my shelf, and I'm okay with that. Then last month I didn't read any, and this month I have a plan for 2, and I'm like, okay, I'll be happy if I can read one of these, because these have been on my shelf forever, and I'm trying to do better about reading what's on my shelf, because I bought them at one time with a purpose.
Like, yeah, you bought them because you were interested in them.
And I can basically figure, and I know pretty much when I bought them and like what phase of life I was in, or what experience, like whether it was at a book signing or, you know, something like that.
I feel like this year, I don't know about how you feel, but I feel like this year I've been better about like not buying it until I want to read it.
I was doing really well until this weekend, and I bought from Amazon.
I mean, I've bought 3 or 4 books in the past few days, so I mean, I guess,
yeah 3 or 4, not compared to what it is, but it is birthday weekend, so I'm like, yeah, I can spoil myself.
By the way, you guys, tell her happy birthday on Instagram, because it's her birthday today as you're listening to this.
Sorry. I never celebrate my birthday ever, and this year it's been like, oh, it's your birthday.
I never do. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like,
I don't know. I was like thinking about, so what do you guys do when you're in a reading rut? Why do you feel you're in a, like, what makes you that? Is it the pressure, or is it just, you know, work? Because sometimes I feel like work is so overwhelming that it will push me into it.
I think as humans, like, we tend to have, and I know this especially like with myself and going to therapy, admittedly, but like, when we have a lot of stressors and pressure from things we can't control, we tend to, our mind immediately switches to like what we can control. And that's why like reading is something you can control. So like, you're gonna feel guilty about this because your brain either doesn't want to, or it's too complex, or whatever it is, doesn't want to focus on like what's going on.
Right.
But I was gonna say, even like, I rarely do TBR videos. Admittedly, the reason I ever do TBR videos is usually because the readathon is probably going to be popular and people are going to be searching for them, and I know that. The reason is because as soon as I like give myself an assignment, I don't want to do it. And because nobody's going to come and grade me, and I mean, even if like she came over to my house and was like trying to shame me about not reading my readathon,
which I would never do.
But like, let's say she was like, this is gonna be like, this is gonna make her do her TBR, I'd be like, bitch, go home.
Yeah, that's exactly what she would do. She'd be like, bye, Felicia.
Like, I don't care.
She would stick EXO on me.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, yeah, I honestly, like, even, like, if you were like, I'm gonna turn off your utilities if you don't read this, I'd probably be like, I guess I'll be sitting in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. She'd be like, Cody, go get a generator. Like, we're okay. But, and I know, like, recognize, like, the reason why I read so many books last month was because of, like, my family stuff going on. It was my escape.
Yeah, it's your escape.
And that's all I did. And not that that's healthy or anything, but I dealt with how things were, but that was my time to, like, get away from everyone. And so I think that's why I'm not in a reading rut right now. And, like, when it came to my TBR for this month, it's because these books have been on my shelf. 3 of them are ARCs. And then I'm attempting to read The Raven Cycle because I bought them, luckily, on Scholastic. So I got them super cheap. But I'm like, this is it's accountability. So I need to read these because of that. Because I haven't read these ARCs. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be public about it so that people will be like, okay. So yes, tell me.
You try to, like, have that accountability, but I don't know.
I am a very mood reader. So I'm curious to see if I'll actually read them or not.
The only reason it irritates me, like, the reason we did we came up with Shop Your Shelves is because, like, as a kid, I legitimately, like, I reread my books. I would go to the library and, like, read books. Like, I read my books.
Yeah.
But now, as an adult, I will buy the book, and it's almost like my mind, like, gets that cue that is like, okay, well, it's done. Like, it's a check mark off your list.
Right.
So, like,
it's on your shelf.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't think about it as an option to read.
Yeah.
So, like, Shop Your Shelves is supposed to, like, kind of help, honestly me, change that mindset of, like, no, like, instead of going and, because especially I feel like because it's in now, like, today, it's so much easier to buy things and to get your hands on things. Like, I can go on
Prime.
Even Prime, but also I can go on Amazon on my Kindle and have a book in, like, 2 seconds.
Yes.
And so I will catch myself, like, I want to read something of, I don't know, like, I want to read a fantasy. I'll be scrolling Amazon, like, looking for a fantasy instead of just going to my shelf and picking up the 20 fantasies that I already have.
Or that's when I go, instead of Amazon, I'll go to BookTube, and then I'll go down that rabbit hole and be like, oh, I need to get this book,
get, like,
and
recommendations.
This book. And, like, recently it's been a podcast. I've been like, ooh, and then I seriously fell down that rabbit hole.
Into this podcast, y'all.
I know.
She has, like, lists and lists of books that she's going to be reading.
Which is so bad, but I did get book ideas from my family for Christmas, because I do that, and so.
That's good.
I'm just, anyways, but
it was funny because I was buying her books for her birthday present, and literally every time we buy each other books, it just adds to our own TBRs.
Yes.
Because obviously, like, if I'm buying her the book, like, I want to read it too, and I want to know about the things.
Right. So should we introduce our book of the month for September?
I guess. So all of this being said, all of this pressure we're adding another bit of pressure because we do a buddy read each month.
So this is technically on our shelves because
I bought it before September.
There we go. And then,
so, we're going to do one of the books I got her for her birthday, which is I Owe You One by Sophie Kinsella.
Yep.
It's going to be like a contemporary romance type of read. I feel like it sounds really cute. It's about a girl who, like, the guy asks her to, like, watch his computer in a coffee shop, and something happens, and it's, like, crazy, and she somehow saves his computer, and he, like, slips her his business card and is like, call me, like, I owe you one. And
right, because she ends up taking over, like, her dad's houseware store, and, like,
for some reason she contacts him again, and I'm sure some things happen. It's also a really cute cover.
It is, and we talked about that with the romance, about we love the illustrated cover.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a, like, stereotypical romance with, like, slabs of abs on the cover.
Right, and so actually Chelsea Dolling reads one of her YouTube videos this weekend that she posted. She actually talked about the illustrated covers, and she hoped, and I was like, oh my gosh, we talked about it first, and I was like, yes.
Nobody knows us, but
no, I know, so I was so excited. And then love this, Sophie Kinsella. But so read it with us in September.
We're gonna be reading it in September
for my birthday.
We are basically giving you an extra week to read Ace of Shades.
Yeah,
so
join us. with that discussion.
I started it and immediately ordered.
Same.
Full.
Mine comes Wednesday.
So,
and the author's been really nice. I actually had a tiny conversation with her on Instagram.
I need to post my picture that I took. We posted it on the Saved by the Books Instagram already, but I need to post it on my
Well,
own.
and then I actually went back and looked on Saved by the Books because we tagged her and I was like, wait, did she see this one or not? Because I almost like screenshot it to send to her since she was talking to me and was like, hey, you're our podcast book for this month. Like, if you want to listen in. But I didn't because I'm chicken and all that. So
I find it, like, I know there's, I've always heard, like, that there, and it seems this way, that everybody in the book community is so nice, but, like, I don't want to reach out to anybody.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm over here with my channel and my podcast, and that's it. I don't want to tell you about it.
Well, and then that made me love her even more, and I was like, oh, I'm buying all your stuff. Like, any of the ones that are interactive
Even
like that.
I've read the first 75 pages of Ace of Shades.
And yeah, you bought.
And, like, she has Daughter of a Burning City that she published before Ace of Shades, and I'm like gonna order that one.
Yeah.
And like prior to, like, I know for a fact Daughter of a Burning City didn't really sound like my type of read when it first came out. And Ace of Shades totally did, but I love her writing style. So.
And I will say Ace of Shades was definitely, I've grown so much in my reading style because I would have never picked this book up at all. Paige just happened to have 2 copies until she's like, here. Like, that actually happens quite a bit in our life. But
yeah, we are actually, so like, we talked about it for like a second. We're vlogging while we read Ace of Shades. So the whole idea is that we're going to have like our separate vlogs where you get like our individual, like our individual opinions as we read them. And then we're going to talk about it on the podcast next week. So
anyways. But yeah,
that's what we're going to be doing. So if you want to read Ace of Shades,
you still have time.
You still have time.
And it's really good. I'm just going to say that.
And then we'll read the Sophie Kinsella, which Sophie Kinsella hopefully will be a quick read.
I'm sure it will be.
Finding Audrey was a quick read.
Well, and I've read all of her other books. I didn't even realize this one came out, so, which is also why.
It came out in January, Becky.
I know, I can't believe I forgot. That's because someone has got me into fantasy.
Also, you guys, she bought this book this morning before.
It's on Book Outlet, y'all.
Before. I literally bought, as I was buying her birthday present, I was like literally scrolling her Goodreads to see if she owned the books I was buying, and she didn't. And then she ends up buying it like a few hours before she gets her birthday present. Yeah. Like, what?
I'm sorry.
And the funniest thing about it was that I kind of
figured,
like, I kind of knew, because I want the books now, and I didn't buy them when I got hers. So I added them to my Amazon cart, and I was about to check out, and then I was like, no, like, let's just wait until you already give her these books, just in case.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, like, if one of us has 2 copies, we just end up giving it to the other one. So, like,
I mean, yeah.
So, yeah, now we both have I Owe You One.
I know. Yay! So we can start it whenever.
Yeah.
After all of our other books we read.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see when we actually read this, because...
Well, we're going to read it in September.
Well, I know, but is it going to be actually, like, at the beginning, middle, or is it going to be the end, like I always do the last few days? You're usually better.
No, I always read the Buddy Read book, okay?
Well, yes.
I don't know. Actually, I think there was like 1 or 2 books of the Creating a Co book club I didn't read.
Oh, I didn't read some of those.
Okay, so...
Because I, like, protested any fantasy books.
She did for a while, but...
Yeah, I got sucked in.
No, there was... We always, like, had a group read each month, like 1 year for the book club, maybe 2 years, I don't know. Anyway, and we have actually had Discovery of Witches as the group read like 2 or 3 times.
I never read it.
Because I didn't read it until the second or third time. Right.
That's when we both ended up.
So I was like, okay, we can have it again, because most of us didn't read it anyway.
Yep. That's who we are.
So yeah, if you want a really low pressure book club,
join us.
Join us in the Creating a Co book club. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's probably all we wanted to talk about today.
I think so. But
the bottom line is, if you feel like you're in a reading rut, just somehow flip a switch in your mind and decide that it's okay. Yeah. You don't have to be reading all the time. Because it really is. And I know it seems like everybody is reading all the time and they're reading all of the books all of the time, but everybody is probably feeling the same way that you
Yeah.
feel. So,
And I would say a
don't let
lot
it get
of
to you.
the ones on BookTube, a lot of them are actually college or just out of college age.
Mhm.
So I know I could have read a whole lot more books in that time period of my life.
I remember one of my English teachers in high school, she was like, this is going to be the time in your life that you have the most time to read. And I remember thinking that she was absolutely crazy. Like, all of us did, because we all had school and extracurriculars and jobs and boyfriends and dances and clubs and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, she was right.
Yep, she was. That's why I've incorporated independent reading time in my classroom. So I can read most days of the week. So
Yeah.
anyways, I guess that's it.
That's it. Don't forget to subscribe and
up.
leave a review on iTunes. We really like to read
Yes.
them, and it helps us out.
It does.
And if you have the secret to actually wanting to reach out to other people in the community, let us know, because we don't.
Yeah, no. We're like the little shy people
we're
in the
just
corner.
like, we'll be over here in our little like corner of the internet.
Yeah.
Even at like BookCon, we barely mentioned that we had a podcast.
No, we had all the bookmarks and we're like, here. And that's only if we talk to the people for like an hour that we ever mentioned it. So, yeah.
Yeah. But now we're really gonna go. All right. We'll
Okay.
talk to you guys later. Bye.